let's be real. Moving sucks, whether you hire a
Yeah.
professional or not. There is a lot of seniors out there that need hand holding, and that's what we do differently is we're the hand holders and the compassionate team through the process because it's overwhelming. And when my dad had to go through it, he doesn't want any help. He can do things himself. He's capable and he would like to, but in the end, we're not as young as we used to be. We can't move like we used to, and our backs don't let us do things that we used to. So it kind of just led me into this career of helping with seniors. And
I mean, this is something we see every day in the senior living industry. We see seniors obviously moving into smaller space. They are downsizing from their current homes, which could be homes from 30, 50 years. So lots of stuff, right? Lots of things to go through. There's this emotional tie to your home, and then
right.
you're going into this new, smaller space. And that whole process could be just not only daunting and overwhelming, but it's very emotional, right? There's a lot of emotions and memories that are tied into this. Welcome. Today we have another amazing guest. She's local to us in the East Bay area. This is Kim Falahadi, founder of Family Matters Moving. And many of you might be wondering, like, what does this have to do with seniors? But you'll find out. Welcome, Kim. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me.
So, Kim, I met you a couple of years ago at a networking event. And at that time, I was newer to the senior industry. And I didn't really think about how moving or downsizing could relate to supporting seniors. So, I'm really excited to have you here today to teach our audience about what you do and how you're impacting our senior community. And I'd love for you to just share a little bit about what Family Matters is.
Sure. So we have 4 teams. We provide 9 different services. They can be a la carte or full service. We just offer it all. So you have one company to call. We pack, move, junk, donate, declutter, sort, unpack, organize, and host estate sales. 20% of our clients are busy professionals, say you and I, and then 80% of our clients are working with seniors, helping them transition and through the emotional daunting process.
Awesome. So, is it typical for you to have a female founder in a moving company?
No, I actually had a comment once where someone met me for the first time and I was introduced as the junk hauler mover of the Bay Area. And the client was shocked that a female was doing it. And once I explained I started the company because of my parents and explained my personal experience, they understood it more. But it's not a very dominant field to be in with a female business owner.
Yeah, it's not right. So that is also another amazing fact about your company. It's female founded. You're local, and you're serving a great purpose. I know you just briefly mentioned a little bit about what got you into the business, but I'm curious, would you tell our audience a little bit more about your history and what inspired you to get into not just moving, but in supporting seniors during this time?
So organizing is something that I've always loved. I call it the game of Tetris. It's something that I've just always done to de-stress. And then my mother, who I won't mention her age, but my father is a proud 88-year-old man. And they, of course, are seniors. My mom, unfortunately, has dementia. She's had 2 different brain surgeries. She has a pacemaker, broke her femur, her hip. So she's had a lot of things happen where this lady, I swear, has 9 lives, but helping to transition them and downsize to make sure that they can live comfortably in their home was a process. And it becomes overwhelming when you're helping a loved one, when you also have your personal life to take care of on top of your work and everything else. So the company kind of started by accident. I'm a nurturer by nature. I studied psychology. And once I had to help my parents and go through the process, I randomly just happened to start this business. We just celebrated 12 years, and it's something that I'm very passionate about because there is a lot of seniors out there that need hand holding, and that's what we do differently is we're the hand holders and the compassionate team through the process because it's overwhelming. And when my dad had to go through it, he doesn't want any help. He can do things himself. He's capable and he would like to, but in the end, we're not as young as we used to be. We can't move like we used to, and our backs don't let us do things that we used to. So it kind of just led me into this career of helping with seniors. And it's also like, say, quote unquote, kids, you and I, where I get phone calls from, say, someone like you saying, hey, my parents need to move maybe to, say, Kensington or Byron Park, and they need to downsize and get that. But they don't just need the downsizing. They might need the unpacking, or they might need, what do we do with the rest of the stuff? So that's how it led into a full service company.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple things there that are really important. I mean, this is something we see every day in the senior living industry. We see seniors obviously moving into smaller space. They are downsizing from their current homes, which could be homes from 30, 50 years. So lots of stuff, right? Lots of things to go through. There's this emotional tie to your home, and then
Right.
you're going into this new, smaller space. And that whole process could be just not only daunting and overwhelming, but it's very emotional, right? There's a lot
Right.
of emotions and memories that are tied into this. So I know there's a process that you take to dealing with your clients and helping them through this, but could you kind of explain some of the psychological challenges that you face with your clients and how you help them to overcome them?
Sure. So I think the part is where I compare it to my parents, where my dad loves gardening. His backyard is his sanctuary. He is out there every day, rototilling at 9 a.m. He's outside until he has to be forced to come inside, whether it's a heat or he's tired. So going through that process and him saying, you know what, I never want to move, but in the end, it could be the best route. Where I always say, moving to independent or assisted living, it's great to do while you can make the choice instead of having us kids do it
Yes.
for you.
Yep.
Taste food because you're going to be eating there a lot. And also, I call it like a senior campus, where in the sense that you have all these other individuals that are similar in age, that there's music, there's happy hour, there's ice cream, there's social hour, there's all these different activities that people don't realize. Where someone like my father going from his house to, say, a smaller one bedroom, it will make him kind of get anxiety of, what, I'm not ready to do this. But it's safer if there's stairs in the house. Maybe there's collectors, quote unquote, we like to say, because the older generation is the one that they collected everything. And so that generation doesn't know how to let go. So offering that complimentary consultation, customizing a plan specific to their needs, helping them identify pieces that are universal to help them use in their new home and make them feel comfortable is what our job is. And then help them with the after part. But it's also the hand holding. We had a client the other day who just moved from Washington, and we unpacked all of her belongings. And right when she walked in, she just started crying. And they moved here to be closer to family, but also because her husband is not starting to be as mobile. So they had to do it because of him. And I just wanted to remind her, look, this is great. You got to choose the house you got to live in. You're moving closer to family so family can help take care of you as needed. There's all these different things that seniors don't look, because they're so used to their house and their lifestyle, which we get. Like my parents built their house, they planted the lemon tree in their front yard, but having to move sometimes might be the better option for them because it's safer and there's people around them that can help take care of them if, heaven forbid, something happens.
I love that you're saying that because not many professionals who are supporting seniors through this process, whether it could be real estate, it could be organizing, moving, they don't always understand the other side of this move, right? It's these seniors that are moving into smaller spaces. It could be a senior living community like the ones that I work at. And there's so many benefits to that. But what I hear you saying too is it's not just, hey, I'm going to help you move, I'm going to help you downsize and maybe even organize this stuff, but I'm also going to look at where are you going next? And
Yeah.
how could that benefit you? Or maybe I have to help give you some options or guide you through this process so that I, as a professional and someone who is compassionate and really passionate about serving seniors and making sure that you're making the best next move. So that's wonderful that you're doing that.
And the thing a lot of people I think don't realize is they always think, okay, I got to move, I got to do this. They always think it's black and white, when in reality it isn't. That's why it's customizing a plan as specific to their needs is important, because it's not always the same order. They might need the same services, but there's a pattern, or there's something that's specific to them that we need to do to make sure that it's smooth for them and not just being rushed, because it's already overwhelming. They're leaving the house they've lived in for so long. So you have to be patient, you have to be compassionate, and you have to
Yeah.
treat them as if they were your family. That's why we call Family Matters, is because we deal with family matters and we want them to know that we treat them as if they were my family.
Yeah, and I know, for someone like yourself, you're out there in the community often, right? I see you at all these networking events. You're working with fiduciaries and estate planners, and you're working with real estate agents.
Right.
And you even partner with your so-called competitors to make sure that you're doing the best thing for your clients or people prospects that are calling you, but also to know that there are other resources out there. And I can't say that there's a tremendous amount of people in the same line of business who are out there and really researching and educating themselves and really getting well networked in their community to be a good resource. But that's something you're doing. And I think that's something really important for our audience to know, that if you are looking to refer a client to a moving company, or you're looking for a parent or a loved one to downsize, that you need to make sure that you're going with someone. It's not just a mover, right? It's someone that is really educated about seniors, specifically this emotional process, the whole process itself of moving and downsizing. And they're really embedded in their community and part of their community, very, very proactive.
Yes, exactly. Because in the end, I might not be the right choice for them for whatever reason that is. So we want to do what's best for them. Sometimes, like, say, we have a lot of clients who are like, we have all this stuff. We want to host an estate sale. Well, an estate sale to me is not necessarily the best service we offer, because an estate sale can be 4 to 6 weeks when sometimes the realtor can make more money than us, because in the end, it's a long time to have the house vacant with workers coming in when they can make more money, and they might need that money immediately to live in independent or assisted living. So we do have
Yeah.
options too where we help pay through escrow, because sometimes people have money in their home and not so much their bank account. So we want to work with them to make sure that we can help with whatever transition they need and anything we could do to make it as possible, whether it's us or another company.
That's awesome. So you're partnering with like real estate agents, lenders. Is there any other professionals out there that are really good partners to not only support you in what you're doing, but to support seniors that you think the audience should know about?
You have a lot of estate planning attorneys because there's a lot through probate, which is
Yeah.
always difficult, and that's a long process, and they don't have the money. Or, again, the pay through escrow where the attorneys come in and say, hey, they just need this help, because attorneys are expensive. So to pay them hourly to counsel them and tell them how to do the process becomes a very pricey situation, where we try to work with that and try to do what we can is try to stay within a price range, help with the important things. Like sometimes maybe they can do the packing on their own, but they just need the physical part of the moving. Or like once they move in, they're used to living and having the house set up a certain way that they can't see outside the box. And I come in and say, well, why don't we move the couch over here? Or how about we have the entertainment center here? So it's having to work with them and seeing something different than maybe they're not seeing, because they're so overwhelmed and they're not accustomed to all of a sudden this abrupt change that they had to adjust to.
Right. And I know that you personally go into your potential client's home, right? And just kind of
Correct.
assess the work that needs to be done. Can you tell me a little bit more about that experience? Because you just said, they may not, that couch may not be the best thing, or maybe there's a area rug that they shouldn't have
Right.
because of
Yes.
tripping hazards. So what does that look like if you're going to go into a senior's home and kind of assess where their, all their furniture and things that they currently have, and knowing that they're going to move?
So I provide a complimentary 1 hour consultation for all anyone looking for any of the services. And that's when
Okay.
I map out that plan for them. They tell me what their ideal situation is, and then I give them how the service works and what my suggestions are. We do a walkthrough of the house. If there's specific pieces of furniture, end tables, or things that I feel that would be a great fit in their new home, even if I don't know what it looks like, that's what I recommend. Because a lot of people, there's this table that people had in the 70s and 80s. I don't know the name of it, but it's, say, a dining table, and both of the sides flap up. And so,
Yeah.
and then it could come down when it's not used, which we have in our home because that's senior parents. But that table is a great table to have, because they can have that against the wall when they have their breakfast or whatever, as they're living in independent living. But then when guests come over, they can always lift it up. And that way it's still safe for them to, heaven forbid, if they have to be in a wheelchair or a walker, it gives them more room to walk around safely. Carpets, just like you said, I never recommend carpets. It's a huge safety hazard. You just don't know what's going to happen. So my goal is to make it as minimal as possible. Focus on what they absolutely love and can't live without. Some people love clothes. Some people love flashlights. It's whatever it is that makes them happy, that we try to focus on that first, and then we'll go down to what's not as important, because we want to make sure they have what makes them feel at home, but we also want them to live safely in their new home.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of emotional attachment, right, to all of these belongings, these things that we have, because there's memories there, right? I
Correct.
once heard recently, I forget who this professional was, but she helped with kind of going through and saving memories with also getting rid of things. So essentially, she could have been a downsizer or an
Right.
organizer. But and I'm wondering if you've ever heard of anyone doing this. She would go through and ask the senior what is really important to you, and then she would
Right.
hear the story about that item. Then she would take a picture and have them write their story about that item, and then create like a book, if you will. So then there's a book of all these items that they had in their memory. So they didn't have to let it go per se, but they
Mhm.
could release the physical thing, right? They could release that because emotionally they had the memory still with them. And then they could even pass that down to their kids. I thought that was just a really neat way to help a senior pass this really trying time, right? And to
Right. And
release.
I think that's a great idea. Whoever thought of that's a great idea because it is a thing is the fact that there's that generation, even our generation, we didn't have phones. We took pictures. And so we had actual pictures back then. So a lot of people still have that memory,
Yeah.
even though if we haven't looked at it, and I know I can say I haven't looked at mine in forever, but we have those, and that's something that we're just not ready to let go of. And so that's something that we want to keep. I had this client who back in the days in Long's days, there's those horses that would be in front of Long's and people would ride those horses, right? You put the quarter in, or there wasn't even a quarter at the time. And
Yes.
we had a client that had one of those. And she's like, well, I
Oh,
really want to save it for my grandkids. And her kids were 20 and 22. So we would have the conversation. Well, that's great, but this is a huge dust collector. This is a very big piece. And in the end, by the time your grandkids come, it could be anywhere from 5 to 10 more years. And half the time, they don't even know what that piece is. And you're keeping this thing, taking it with you everywhere. But in the end, this generations change so much that this new generation are minimalists. They don't want those big clunky things. So we'll talk about it. We'll tell the story. We'll narrow it down and say, do we really need this? How about we keep this piece instead because it's much smaller? It's something that you can keep, and it's something that maybe would be even more helpful to pass down than say this large piece of horse that you used to have back in the days.
that's fantastic. Now, are you going into the new home? If you know, you obviously know where they're going, but do you have that time to go into their new home and space and kind of look at it and say, oh, hey, we're moving from here. This is where we're going, and kind of lay out what that new home will look like when you guys unpack?
We do. So a lot of the times of certain independent assisted livings, I'm familiar with how the layout already is. So I try to
Mhm.
educate myself and visit those places. So then when clients say, hey, we're moving to here and they have the layout and they give me that piece of paper, I know exactly what they're talking about because I've already educated
Wonderful.
myself on that layout. And so then I do give suggestions. And some people like to have the feng shui vibe, or they want to make sure that it's more open and easy again if they're in the wheelchair or walker to make them walk around safely. So having that I think is just as important because that's their new home. That's the place that's going to be their sanctuary. And they're not used to sharing walls. They're not used to having, the sorority frat house lifestyle that they probably would have had, however many years ago. So having a understanding of the layout and what works is important. We had a gentleman that was going from Rossmore to independent living where we even cut out little things to write down and tape it to it because he was such a perfectionist. He had to have that visual of everything goes, measured everything to the T. And that's what
Wow.
made him feel comfortable because that's what worked from. Certain seniors have done so many different tech work or engineering that their brains work that way. So we need to adjust to them to make sure that they're the comfortable part of it and they know what fits and what doesn't. Because like my dad could look at something and be like, oh, that's 24 or whatever it is. And it's a typical senior of having that understanding of the measurements and what goes where. So if I can help them in any way I can, we always try to.
That's great. And it's not, expected that you're a team of one. Obviously, this is a huge job. You have to have a team to support
Correct.
you. I would say you're kind of like the brains and face of the company. You're the one going out and working with the clients at first and really helping them assess their belongings and what can go and what can't go or what's suggested not to go. What about the move? Can you tell me a little bit about that process and what your workers are like, your team? How does that look?
So currently right now, because it's peak season, we have 17 people on the team and the four different teams that we have. And each team is specifically assigned to what their roles are because that's what they're best at. And Moving is also another game of Tetris where we have to load the truck properly. And say if we're moving something to Byron Park and then they have to go something to storage or something to a loved one, we need to know what that is so we can load the trucks properly. So painter's tape is something we always suggest. A lot of people suggest it because it doesn't damage the furniture. It's bright color so the movers are aware of what needs to get done. One of the things we try to do is if they have a pack and move or pack, move, and unpack, sometimes that's a 2-day job. So we always make sure that they have the same lead or the same team because they're familiar with the layout. They know what they pack. So then when they have to unpack or do anything, they know what's in there and how it's done. And then say if they do move to the independent living and my organizers come in, my organizers unpack as my movers are unloading. And so they've worked together for years. They understand how the process works. We get it done in a timely manner because it's exhausting. No senior wants to have a full day of moving because it's too much for them. So in order for us to speed the process, we try to bring in as many people as we can to shorten the timeline. And people always worry, well, gosh, all these people, that means more money an hour. Well, that's true. But in the end, if we have less people, that just means longer time and you're still paying the same price. Right. We just want to get it done in a timely manner so they're comfortable. We'll even make the bed, have that set up so they can sleep comfortably in their home. They have a specific layout. We had a client who actually, when she moved, she was Persian and she had a T-bar and she wanted that T-bar set up the exact same way. So we took a picture, we set it up so that first morning she had her new home. She knew where everything was and she can have her morning tea and feel like home the first night there.
That's sweet. That's very sweet and attentive. Look at the detail in that. That's really wonderful. Is there something that you've learned through the years that you would recommend to seniors if there was a senior listening or adult children who are looking to help their parents through this process? Is there anything that you learned that you're like, these are things that you want to watch out for. These are things that you do or do not want to do. And hey, here's what this can look like.
I do. So there's two things. Is one, the painter's tape is, say if they're in a 4,000 square foot home, right? Not everything's going. So that's where the painter's tape becomes useful. And you don't want to be able to take everything off the walls. And sometimes kids like you and I, we're busy. We don't have time to sit there and be with the movers or pack everything for us. So not having to take things out of the cabinets and just tape the cabinet or tape the artwork makes life so much easier. And then the other thing is to focus on them. My dad always says you're number one. And that's something that I've always used, even in my industry, in the sense that we want to make sure that everything that they want is done first because they're our priority. If they need to do it a different order, that's fine. But we always want to make sure that they're the priority of what they want. And then we say, hey, loved ones, make sure you identify, and if you can, remove what you want to keep, because you're also part of that number one as well of what's important to you. Because what's important to you and what your mom thinks it's important to you could be totally two different things.
Right.
We all have a house full of stuff that I don't want that coffee table that my grandfather built, but I'll take a little statue or something decor, a small piece of decoration that I know that's a memory to me, and then I'll put that in my house. So you want to make sure that those things are taken care of first, and then we can always help with whatever the next steps would be to help get them out of the home comfortably.
That's fantastic. And something that I just kind of want to caution the audience with is that I feel like a lot of people when they're looking to move, obviously there's usually huge expense that goes into moving, whether it's buying up or going down, downsizing. There's just an expense. There's a mental toll. There's a physical toll. There's so much. And people typically, when they're looking to save. Like, what is the cheapest mover I can get? But there's so much more, obviously, as you're sharing, that goes into moving beyond just picking something up, putting it in a truck and taking it out of a truck. There's a lot more, especially when it involves our seniors. What are some words of wisdom that you can give our audience in regards to you pay for what you get?
Right. Well, movers charge, what I've noticed, is anywhere from 55 to 85 an hour. 55 is usually, I would always say, the Craigslist ones, the movers that they advertise on there. And most of them, majority of movers, I would say it's 50-50. It could not be licensed. And they don't train properly. There's lots of videos. There's lots of training that my team has to go through to pack and get everything done properly, because there's a right way and a wrong way to pack boxes, in the sense that we want to make sure that the boxes, like say a small box would need to be for plates, books, and things like that. If we were to do a medium box or large box of books or plates, those plates are not secured enough that they're going to break. books become too heavy. So you need a company that's educated on that. The lower end, I always say the 55 to 65 is usually the uninsured or maybe not as experienced, that they've probably been in business for under 5 years. The $85 an hour is
Mhm.
someone that's probably been in the business for 20 plus years and has built that reputation that they're that good and they can charge that much because they know what to do and everything just runs smoothly. So it just depends on what you're wanting to do. I say the best way to save money is purchase your own materials. Home Depot, you can always return whatever they don't use. So therefore you can get the materials that you need. Small and medium boxes are very common. Home Depot has the thicker boxes. Nope, that's not even what's needed. You don't need to spend that extra money. Just the basic boxes of small and medium. A lot of moving companies like ourselves provide complimentary wardrobe boxes because they're really expensive. Or if they unpack it
Mhm.
prior to us leaving, they don't have to pay that $20, $30 for the box. So there's different ways to save time and money where most of the time it might just be like, hey, we need the muscle in the truck because we can't lift that hutch that everybody has in their house or that very heavy piece of furniture. Because back in the 70s, everything was made out of solid wood. This generation is
Right.
more IKEA. It's not as sturdy and as solid wood as it used to be. So those pieces are a lot heavier. There's stairs, there's hallways we look into, driveways. All of that we take into consideration when we're doing a move to make sure we include that when we provide estimates. Because estimates sometimes it could be binding or not binding. So just depends. You just want to make sure that you have the company visually come to your house or visually look at the items. We had somebody that two 20-year-olds that called us to move 5 hours away. And they're like, well, we can pack everything, but we just don't have the truck. Well, that move almost cost them $7,000 because it's such a long drive of loading and unloading. And of course, they couldn't do it. So then I gave a different suggestion. Well, maybe the U-Haul is what's needed. And if you can't lift the stuff, then you just hire us or another moving company to load the truck. You drive it, then you hire another moving company on the end. And that way they can spend probably 3,000 or less. And that's a huge savings. So you want to make sure that whoever you're working with looks at the full picture and not just what works best for the company, because we're not the one that has to go through this and deal with it. Our clients do. So that's where, again, what's the better option? Is it us? Is it, say, U-Haul? Is it a company that could be more experienced and they might charge more, but they might want somebody that's like that? It can be so many different factors. So you just want to make sure you ask the right questions, you research what it is. There's different websites to check to see if people are licensed, and those things are important because a lot of people
Yeah.
don't want to get licensed because it's so expensive for the insurance, for the box trucks, and so on. But those that are legit are going to have those things. And those are the people you want because if you say break something, it's not on the client side. By law, it's 60 cents a pound. So when you have these huge flat screen TVs that everybody has now, say if a mover breaks it, that's 60 cents a pound. And if they want to go through the insurance, that's what it's going to be. Some could try to replace it, some could try to fix it, but there's all these different things. So you want to make sure you have that right company because if heaven forbid, I mean, we're human. Things happen. Some tables aren't meant to be moved by another company. They're delivered by a forklift because it's a heavy cement table. And then you're bringing movers in that just have their box truck and the materials. It's a very different type of move than it is coming from the factory.
Right. Now, is there anything different? I don't expect that there is because you've covered pretty much all of it, but would you suggest anything different to a professional who's looking for their client that's a senior and giving them advice on this is what you look for to help support your client?
I do. I think it's really important because, a lot of people trust their attorneys, their realtors, their friends, and they
Yeah.
ask all these questions. So there's usually things that people that are emotionally involved in the transition or move might not think of these questions where the loved ones or realtors can and say, hey, this is somebody that I've worked with. This person's very compassionate, or this person's inexpensive. They get the job done, but I just want you to be aware they're inexpensive because they've only been in business for a handful of years. So communication is key. I'm an over communicator. I might even repeat things because in the end, I want to make sure they clearly understand. I put myself in the shoes of my parents. With my mom having dementia, it's a lot of repetitive. My father might be completely there and understand and totally with it, but he doesn't know the right questions to ask. And they can be stuck of 20, 30 years ago when they moved last. And like, I remember when I moved this day, blah, blah, blah. And it's changed. All of it has changed.
Yeah.
So we still pack and move. We can still move, but there's a lot more details, a lot more involved than just the basic lift and unlift. and excuse me, load and unload.
Yeah, that's great. And again, you mentioned two things that are really important: license and
Mhm.
insured,
Insured.
right? Yeah, so
Yes,
really
also
important.
that is, and that's why people are more moving companies are more expensive because they have the proper licensing and trucks that you need. And when you get bigger, like we are fortunate, we have two moving trucks, which means it does get more on the higher end and not such the 55, 65 end because we have those different resources. So when a client needs, say, 6 to 8 movers, we can bring that with two trucks and they're on our team and they're ready to go. Where some other moving companies might be smaller and like, well, we can get 2 or 4 people, but then it becomes a longer process. And when it becomes a longer process, it's more stressful. I mean, let's be real. Moving sucks whether you hire a
Yeah.
professional or not. So you want to make sure you ask the right questions, you do the research, and look at the reviews. Yelp review, you can look back to when it first was dated, and that's how you know how long they've been in business. Because we all could say we've been in business for 10, 15 years. We can say whatever we want, but you have to do the research. You got to look it up and see what works best and ask questions with your colleagues, friends, or realtors, because chances are they know people, they worked with people, and they can help with that as well.
Well, thank you for sharing all this with us, Kim. It's so important. Again, moving can be incredibly stressful. There's a lot involved in it. There's so much emotional involvement in moving and downsizing. And when it comes to our seniors, we should be looking at the experts in the industry like Kim Falahadi. We should be looking towards people who understand how to help our seniors, whether they're loved ones or they're your clients, but how to move them from point A to point B in the most seamless way, the most caring way. And I know Family Matters absolutely does this.
Yes, I have to say one of the things that how I hire people, I actually hire on compassion first. You can't
Mm.
teach compassion. It's either you have it or you don't. I can teach you to move, I can teach you to hustle, I can teach you to do all that stuff, but compassion is the important part because if a client is having a breakdown, you have to help them through that and stop. We understand time is money, but we also want to understand that this isn't something that they might always want or ever. No one teaches us until we have to go through it, so it's overwhelming. So having that compassion is huge in my company that I need to have with my team.
Well said. Moving with compassion. That's
Yeah.
that's awesome. Well said. Well, thank you so much, Kim, for being here today. I appreciate it, your time.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it as well.